Hello and welcome to another video. So this will be the final video before the expansion goes live, so that's pretty interesting, but it also means that pretty much no matter what deck I cover, it's going to be reasonably outdated by then. So I picked something fun that I found on Twitter. Blue Reboot had posted a list and I thought it looked interesting. I made one small adjustment, going with Omen of Craving over extra Melissa, mainly because I don't have 2 extra Melissa to at least try out, but I also felt like Omen of Craving was quite a good additive to this deck, as you can quite easily develop a solid board, and pretty much it follows the whole line of tempo plays all the way up to turn 7 here, which works out quite nicely. So we're going to get right into it and take a look. So this deck definitely appears to be very tempo orientated based on how I was playing it, or at least how it seems to play in general. Being able to pretty effectively curve out and develop a board against your opponent is always going to be something important, and it also does fairly well against spells and effects, as it's got some decent negation for that as well. So we do start off with the Double Holy Bear Knight plus the Pure Hearted Singer, which isn't a bad way to kick off the game. And we also end up with the Legendary Fighter, so that is another pretty key card in this deck. It both becomes a guaranteed target for your opponent to have to kill, and it has a decent chance of being proccable, whether that is just double attacks or not, through the use of other cards. So I was setting up for a hopeful turn 4, but since Snarling Chains was played, I was mainly going to probably aim for Legendary Fighter on turn 5, so I could take full advantage of the Evo effect. So if I evolve one of my followers, play, of course, Legendary Fighter before that, go with Genesis of Legend as well, I can get at least 2 of the 3 actives on it, and make it a guaranteed thing for my opponent to have to kill. And playing up against Blood was actually a reasonably positive matchup, since we do stack pretty decently against Blood as far as damage normally goes. The only thing I didn't deal with was going to be the 4/4 here. I was mainly just worried about dealing with the board, and since I couldn't actually deal any damage to the face, it was just going to be kind of psychological damage at that point. But getting it on the ward for the Bane is actually the best possible option. It does mean that it's going to absorb one of these followers very, very easily. And they do still have the Blazing Sapphire. Definitely one to keep an eye on there. Blazing Sapphires can be both good and bad for you. And they pretty much have to clear that Legendary Fighter. They don't have a choice. If they don't clear it, they would risk taking 8 damage, and that's way more than they would want to take, for sure. But playing off this, we actually do a fairly decent job. I mean, we've got 7 damage on board. Sending all of that to face sets us up pretty well, and we end up with the best target for Bane. So it's going to absorb at least 2 of these cards now, but they are going to heal for 5. Which is definitely a rough position. But we are forcing them to deal with the board, so I guess that's a fair trade-off. And they are setting themselves reasonably low, down to just 7 health now. And with Apostle of Usurping, we're looking good. We're going to be able to take this game now with exact lethal thanks to the Blazing Sapphire, which will ping them for 2 damage. Could not have went better, honestly, there. That Blazing Sapphire definitely saved us the hassle of having to kill my opponent. Just while we wait for this game to load up, of course, we're going to be getting right into the expansion tomorrow. We're going to have a lot going on. We're going to have, of course, new decks coming up immediately after tomorrow. We're going to first have the full coverage of the story mode for Sword, as I cover pretty much every single time a new story chapter comes out, along with, of course, our massive pack opening. They're the 2 things we'll be covering for sure. Then, of course, following day, we're going to have deck lists pretty much coming out daily for the whole time. That's what I aim for. And, of course, anything else that comes out in that time that might be interesting, like the Grand Prix, is usually what I'll have go up. So starting off well, I decided to go for Genesis of Legend. We already have 2 of them, so losing 1 proc on this isn't the end of the world for me. And as I said, this is just a pretty perfect tempo sort of style deck. You pretty much can guarantee a play on every turn, which is always nice. It's very hard to brick. And even then, we get a decent draw. Charlotta should come in quite handy, especially if we can get something to go along with this, and Legendary Fighter is a good option. Charlotta is going to protect it. The Evolve effect is going to be able to take effect there, which is good. We have a second Genesis of Legend to follow up with if we need to, next turn. Along with, of course, Usurping. Fortunately, Black Inscripture ended up being a targeted effect. We're only protected against damage. So definitely Armor is what you want to use on Legendary Fighter. At that time I didn't really think of it. But Armor would definitely block out a lot of potential threats. Of course, not every threat, just what I would consider the majority. And again, setting up the Pure Hearted so we can get the extra draw power. Before going into Gem Princess for our opponent, which is not too bad. We should be able to handle this quite well. So Apostle plus Armor gives it a nice boost as well if that's the play we want to go for, but Holy Bear is also actually pretty decent. So we definitely had options here. Armor was just the one I decided to favour, as it's going to be hard to remove that if you can't target it. But, as I mentioned, we're going to have lots of fun stuff, hopefully, coming up. We're going to have so many packs to open. We did just do the 50 pack opening a few days ago, or a couple of days ago. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommended it. We'll probably have actually over 60 packs at that point for that video. That's going to be a lot of fun for me, as I am recording this in a little bit in advance for you guys, so that I can have Christmas period off, up until, obviously, the expansion a couple days after Christmas, but until then. So here is Hind. What fun, Hind just kind of whacking us. And Jeweled Priestess. Okay, so we just want to take this out now. And getting Apostle is actually pretty ideal for this. We're able to use Queen to bulk our board up and set up for our Omen turn, which is probably going to be the biggest turn we need here. So really the only bad card here would be to have a complete banish on the board, which would cost them their entire turn. Glorious Lapis, not bad when they don't have an Evo, and they're not proccing these amulets by the looks of it, so that's very, very promising. We actually have Lethal thanks to Omen. We're going to be able to just buff the board completely. We've also got Frostbeard, which is going to give us a +2. Not that I believe we needed it. I think we had just Lethal anyway. Or maybe we would have just been short if we didn't have that. No, we probably would have had it anyway, because we only ended up being 1 damage short, even though we had +2, so yeah, we would have had it anyway. Fun game though. So this Tempo Sword deck definitely turned out to be a lot of fun. Armor of Stars is a great card when it comes to wanting to block off boards, and that seems to be what most of this Tempo style deck does. It tries to protect the board you're early in the game developing, while taking advantage of some of the bigger stuff. The only thing might be Lux Solar Lancer, as the only card it can pull is Dark Melissa, so maybe running 2 of it isn't worth it for 6 play points. Maybe, I don't really know here. Maybe if I was running 2 Dark Melissa instead. But, I mean, even just as a one-off, it's good. And Solar can draw anything from 5 and below, so it will draw any other cards out of the deck here that aren't neutral, so that's not bad either. So if you guys did enjoy this video, if you did, hit the like button and subscribe. Be sure to check out tomorrow's videos. They're going to be a lot of fun for me to do for you guys. Until next time, see ya.